Hey everyone, it's Chainsaw Gears 12 here, and I'm back with another review today. Today I'm reviewing Metallica's The Black Album. Now, let me go through the track listing before I jump off into this album and talking more about what this album did. Not so much about the songs. Now, I'm going to go through the track listing, but I'm not going to go through each individual song since there are 12 songs on this album, and it would just, knowing me, I'd take too long, and the video would be way too long to the point where you people wouldn't even watch it. So, I'm going to go through the track listing. Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Holier Than Thou, The Unforgiven, Wherever I May Roam, Don't Tread on Me, Through the Never, Nothing Else Matters, sorry about that. A Wolf and Man, The God That Failed, My Friend of Misery, and The Struggle Within. Seem to fight. So, this album, it's not, I don't think it caused a lot of controversy. It showed what Metallica was doing, was going a certain way that people weren't really understanding or at the time. So at the time when the Black Album came out, Metallica got the new producer, Bob Rock. And Bob Rock made a lot of changes to what Metallica was doing in the past, because Metallica were just going for that straight thrash element, the heaviness, the ballads, you know, the typical Metallica before the Black Album hit. The Black Album, when it happened, you saw the metal, the music from Metallica get a lot more softened, a lot more just not the typical thrash element. There are thrash elements on this album. There are heaviness on this album, but this album is a lot more commercialized rock. A lot of people say this is more commercialized metal. This was when Metallica went commercialized, and they did, of course. They went mainstream. They got huge. Like, after Metallica hit with the Black Album, that's when it made more socially acceptable to like metal or rock. Because back before that, it just wasn't. It was mainly underground until Metallica blew up in this album. But this is where a lot of the thrash fans that were loving Kill 'Em All through and Justice for All, this is where they thought that this is where Metallica was going down a road that they shouldn't. Because the Black Album, yes, at the time, and it probably still is, the best quality production metal album of all time. But the album had a lot of elements of softened rock, and it just wasn't the typical Metallica. It had a straight ballad, Nothing Else Matters, with no heaviness until the very end of the song. It had shorter tracks and the straight, just really just softened riffs. The songs sounded good in the format that they were, but comparing their tracks on this album to earlier records shows a major change, especially from Justice for All, which was their most technical release to date, to releasing the Black Album. After that album was a huge change, going from their most technical album to their most non-heavy, like the non-heaviest album they've ever written. It's kind of a really big change, and Bob Rock, that's what it was. Bob Rock wanted the studio recording, the album, to sound like they were live. Like, he wanted to get that full live sound of Metallica like they were live in the studio. And I felt like he captured it. Now, I'm not going to go any further before I say this, is that I'm saying that I'm not dissing this album. I'm talking about what people were saying about this album, how this album affected Metallica, because I enjoy this album. I love this album. But this is where a lot of people have problems with it, because Metallica, blah, 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 phone. Anyways, back to the topic of the album. Still ringing the phone. Anyways, the Black Album, it really just gave me a lot of thoughts of, okay, Metallica's going mainstream. They went a direction of, we're, you know, going to write shorter songs. We're going to have a straight ballad, but we're still going to have the thrash elements. But it's not going to be a complete thrash album. A lot of people can throw this under a mix between thrash, a commercialized rock, commercialized metal, I don't know, punk, I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of elements on this album that it fits with the album, but compared to their earlier work, it doesn't fit. Now, comparing it to Load and Reload, this is a heavier Load and Reload album. This made sense. This was the album for the break between the Justice for All and Load, because Load is complete blues rock, or just straight softened rock, like completely softened rock. There's a lot of ballad stuff. There's a lot of things. It had a lot of Load had a lot of elements of the Black Album, and it was lighter. So basically, the Black Album was the key thing from Justice for All, the most technical album, the Black Album, which is commercialized rock, some thrash elements, and then we go to Reload, which is complete commercialized type music. But like I said before, it's not a diss. It's just the Black Album just changed a lot of things. A lot of people, a lot of the Metallica fans that are just fans of the first 4 or 5 albums, a lot of people say, well, Metallica became crap after the Black Album, or they'll say, or the other people would say Metallica became crap when they released Load. So they accepted the Black Album, but they and some didn't accept the Black Album. I accept it for what it is because it has a lot of good elements. The Struggle Within's a great ending for the album. It's a really fast paced. It really brings me back to earlier Metallica, but it's not what you would hear on Injustice for All or Master of Puppets. It wouldn't fit. That type of song structure would not fit. Nothing Else Matters is the complete straight ballad that gives just a lot of elements of Metallica just wanted a straight ballad, and it fits on the album where it's at. Now, if it was placed on the album differently, I don't think it would fit. But Nothing Else Matters was just a straight ballad that at first James Hetfield wrote by himself, and Lars heard it, and so we had to put this on the album, and he didn't want it at first, but then it got on the album. And I'm thinking if it didn't get on the album, then I don't know. I don't think the album would have changed that much. I just don't know what would have been put there if it had not been Nothing Else Matters. That was the question, because James Hetfield didn't want the album, didn't want the song on the album. So, like I said, if it wasn't on the album, what would be there? I don't know. And then we have just a lot of the thrash elements on this album, which is Holier Than Thou, which is kind of thrashy in a way. Through the Never is complete thrash. I think that's a thrash album, no, song. Sorry. I just think it is. We also go into Wherever I May Roam, which is a heavy song. And then we got Inner Sandman, which is the anthem. But in my opinion, Inner Sandman's overplayed. It's way overplayed. It's not overrated. It's just overplayed. It's a good track. It's a good way to open this album. This type of concept, they were going more commercialized. But Inner Sandman's way overplayed. I said this before in the first Black Album review I did like 3.5 years ago. It was overplayed, and it's still overplayed. I heard it live when I saw them live at my concert in 2009 in Charlotte. I sang along with it, yes, but it's overplayed. That's just what it is. And when the Black Album came out, they played that song so much everywhere. They still do it. But it's a Metallica track nonetheless, but it's overplayed. And we just got a lot of these elements of a Wolf and Man kind of thrash element. I'm just riffing, thinking of My Friend in Misery. I think My Friend in Misery is one of my favorite tracks on this album because it had a lot of the bass element. It reminded me a lot of Cliff Burton type stuff, but of course it wasn't Cliff Burton, it was Jason Newsted. But My Friend in Misery sounded like a track that I think Cliff would have wrote because it had a lot of those harmonizing melodies. It was just really crisp, really clean, had a lot of bass stuff in it. It really reminded me of something that Cliff could have wrote. I think if Cliff was still in the band, a song like My Friend in Misery probably would have came out with Cliff Burton. But as we all know, he didn't. But Orion, I think Orion middle section, the really spacey part, that's why they call it Orion. I feel like that reminds me a lot of My Friend in Misery in some ways. But like I said, My Friend in Misery is probably one of my favorite tracks. I don't know. I can't really pick a favorite track, but this album just gives you a lot of commercialized metal from Metallica, and it doesn't fit on any other discography. If you decided to pick out, let's just say, you decided to pick out Wherever I May Roam, and you like, okay, I'm gonna put this on Master of Puppets. It wouldn't fit. Okay, well, let's take Of Wolf and Man. Let's put it on Kill 'Em All. Wouldn't fit. Let's try to take Nothing Else Matters and replace Fade to Black off of Ride the Lightning and put Nothing Else Matters there. I think that would probably destroy Metallica's reputation, because at the time, that was a scary thing for Metallica to do, was Fade to Black and Ride the Lightning. But to give them a complete ballad with nothing but clean guitars till the very end for James Hetfield solo and Nothing Else Matters, that would scare people. I think people would have flipped out way worse than they did on Fade to Black, because it was half ballad, half thrash metal, or just whatever ballad you want to call it. But so you can't take any songs off the Black Album and place it on any of the earlier discography. Now you could take some of their songs off this album, put it on Load or Reload, and it would fit, because that's the type of music. But they went more soft on Load and Reload. But I feel like the Black Album has its own thing, because the Black Album just gave you commercialized metal that Metallica didn't at the time. I don't think people expected it. I don't think people expected Metallica to go more commercialized with this album. But it is what it is. And like I said, I'm not going to rate it. You rate it down in the comment section below. But I feel like this album, it's not a diss. It's just this album just changed a lot of things. And it's a great album. But comparing to their earlier work, it there's a reason why people. I understand why people hate it. I understand why people don't enjoy it like the early work, because it's not like the early work. It's more commercialized, and they try to throw in that thrash element to make like, oh, well, this is like our earlier work, and it didn't. It what people weren't gonna buy it. People were like, nope, not believing that for 1 second. But that's the review, guys. I know I talked a lot about how this album affected things. I know I didn't go through all the songs. Sorry about that, but that's just what it is. But as always, guys, comment down below and you let me know your favorite songs off this album, and give me your personal rating and opinion on this album, because I'm more like I'm asking you guys about your opinion about how you feel about this compared to their early discography work. If you'd rather pick the Black Album over their earlier work. But that's always up to you guys. So as always, you like the video and you subscribe for more metal videos, whatever the subscribe button is up there. So anyway, guys, I will see you guys tomorrow.